It's that time of year that every manager dreads. Finding the time to write up all the end of year reviews for your employees, telling them the things that you've already told them all year because you were doing your job.
Next Level Coaching.
Hey, I'm Jim Kelly here with Next Level Coaching, and I'm here to bring your career to the next level. So today we're going to talk about end of year reviews from a manager's point of view. We're going to talk about to-dos, to-don'ts, formatting, and what we can do in the future to make this easier on ourselves. What you can do right now to make things easier on me is hit the like and subscribe button. Do it gently, because you don't want to hurt your finger or your phone. But we're going to talk about how to make things easier on ourselves from a end of year point of view, because it takes a lot of time, a lot of effort to put all these words into the documentation you need to put it into. And it changes year to year on how you're going to have to do it and how the format looks. And that's pretty much at every firm. So we want to make this as easy a process as possible, because you're already spending 6 to 8 hours in meetings every day. You don't want any more of your time taken up on this than you have to. So without any further ado, let's get into it. So let's start off with our to-dos, because that's always important to know. Am I right? So here we go. To-do number 1. Incorporate what you can from the employees' end of year write-up. They spent time on it. We should take our time to read it and see where they think they're doing well and what they think they should be working on. And we should incorporate that into our feedback, because sometimes they're going to think they're doing something terrible that we think they're doing great. And we want to reiterate, hey, you might think this is a weakness, but we think it's a strength. So, maybe you should be doing more of that. And other times they're going to think something is strength that is something we want them to work on. So it's strange how the conceptions of the mind can be different from person to person. So keep that in mind as we move forward. The next to-do we want to have here is we want to list out all of their wins for the year. Not some, not most, all of their wins. Now, I'm not saying we go, John Q. Sample got to work on time every day. That's not necessarily a win. But it also doesn't have to be giant, Susie Q got us $10 million in extra earnings this year. It doesn't always have to be that big either. It can be things in the middle of that. But we want to be listing out as many as possible because, one, we want to make sure we're giving the person as good a view of how we perceive them as possible. All right? And 2, we want to have them encouraged going into the next year, not coming out of this going, oh, this is terrible. Okay? Our next to-do, we want to give them something to work on. All right? We want to have something that we feel is a growth opportunity for them. It does not necessarily have to be a giant, moon reach thing here, but it should be something that's going to step up their game in the following year. And last but not least, we want to make sure we're providing a good overview of their performance. A solid overview, doesn't have to be giant, but we want to make sure that they know where they're at and why they're there. So now on to the don'ts. Number 1 thing we want to make sure we are not doing is making this a list of their greatest mistakes or their latest mistakes. Just because they made a mistake 2 days ago does not mean we want to include this in their end of year. End of year should never feel retaliatory. And also, if you put too much negative feedback into an end of year, you are going to demotivate your employee, and they're either going to be looking for another job or another manager. And you don't want that, generally. If that is something you want, then, that's obviously a course you can take. It's not what I would do. I always try to manage up, bring people to the next level, and find ways to make them better employees. But, to each their own. But But we don't want to do that. We don't want to ever write our end of year reviews in anger. It's a bad look for both you and your employee. Remember, these are going to be permanent records for the person within the firm. So all their future hiring managers are going to be able to look back at this. Any manager that takes your place is going to be able to look back at this, and it's going to help form their opinion on the employee and how they work. So we want to be fair to that process. But number two, we don't want to make this all unicorns and rainbows. You probably don't have a perfect employee. They are pretty much non-existent because humans aren't perfect. We're not perfect beings. It's okay. It's okay that we're not perfect beings. We should have things we can grow into and work on. So make sure you're doing your job and providing those opportunities in this end of year. And then last and certainly most important, do not make it generic unless you have a new employee who's been here for 2 months and you really don't have much feedback for them yet because they're just spending their time learning their job. It can be pretty generic and to the point at that point. But otherwise, we want to make sure we are spending the time to actually address our employee and help them grow with this. This can be a check the box process. It shouldn't be, though. If we're going to spend time doing something, we should do it right and make it add value to the company. Otherwise, you need to be having conversations with management and HR to get rid of this completely obsolete process that is just check the box to cover our behinds for end of year raises and whatnot. Next thing we're going to talk about here is formatting, because formatting is important to get a good, clear message across. So we're going to start off with an overview. The overview of how they've done for the year. This is very high level. You did great. You're meets expectation. You've done very well at your job. You're below meets. We have room to improve on things. Or you've exceeded expectations, and here's the amazing things you've done. Right? We want to just do a quick overview, very short, to the point. Next, we're going to go on. These are your areas for growth. Okay? We're going to bring this up early so that it's going to be weighing in the back of their head as we go into their wins and, future. We want to keep this, again, 2 to 4 sentences. This shouldn't be a giant part unless they are below expectations, in which we want to expand on why they are below expectations. Because we have to make that case to them so they understand it, as opposed to you're below expectations because somebody had to be. That's never a good justification. Never, no matter what your policies are at your firm, that is never justification. But I digress. We want to spend room for growth opportunities here so they know how they can grow effectively. Next, we want to go over their wins. Now, this should be the bulk of your write-up if you want to properly motivate your employees and show that you were actually paying attention to them all year. So this can be as long as it needs to be. Now, we don't want to put in all of the micro wins people have. I got out of bed. Great. That's fantastic, but that doesn't belong in your end of year. Okay? I showed up to work. No, that ain't going to cut it. But we want to make sure we're putting in their wins. John Q. Sample hosted X call every week. They took lead on this project. They participated in this other project. They did all these other things. We want to make sure we're listing as many of those as we can without, giving ourselves carpal tunnel typing it up. All right. Then the last thing we want to do is our expectations for the next year. This part is just as important because it's going to set goals before you set goals. All right. So they know in that first, in January, February, I know sometimes up to March, we still haven't gotten our goals out. they know what they should be working on that first quarter to really highlight their next year. And this is an important thing to set up. Last and most importantly, we want to talk about how we're going to make this better in the future for you. Yes, we want to make this process easy on ourselves. So, number one, you need to be having regular meetings with your employees and having honest conversations about how they're doing and where they are ranking. All right. You know, someone who's in the middle of the pack should know they're in the middle of the pack. You know, there's nothing wrong with being in the middle of the pack. Have that conversation. If they're on the lower end of middle of the pack, and that might be leading them towards falling below meets, you need to be having those conversations early so they can adjust our trajectory, so they can make a positive impact on it for end of year. Or they can be making a proper plan of, maybe this isn't the role for me and I need to be going somewhere else. That we need to be having honest conversations about these things. Okay? And on a regular basis. Which leads me to the next part we could be doing to make this easier on ourselves. Use AI note-taking to capture these conversations and have minutes from them that you can reflect back on. So as you, in the year 2024, as we move into 2025, almost everyone's using AI for everything, which it's good, it's bad, it's ugly. We'll get into the benefits and drawbacks of AI at some other point. But note-taking is something that does well most of the time. It's not always perfect. It's going to miss very important things. And that's why you want to make sure you're looking at those minutes right away so you can add in important things that it missed. But unless you're doing a AI that's capturing all of your conversation, you have it word for word. If you're just getting summaries, we want to make sure we're getting the all the good things that it might overlook. Because I've been in many conversations where it captures the most ridiculous thing I said, because I do say a lot of ridiculous things because I like to be funny. But it misses the important information I'm trying to relay. So make sure you're paying attention to that. And then this is something that, is going to help you out a lot, is every week or every other week, depending on how busy you are, try to tabulate all the wins for your employees and keep a running list on them. This might be something you want to share back with your employee to let them know their wins, because they are going to overlook them on a regular basis, because that is what we do as human beings. We focus on the bad and overlook our good. You do a lot of good in the world, but you expect success. So because you expect it, you don't focus on it. You don't focus on those wins. You focus on the losses. And that is human nature. And we have to fight it where we can. So maybe giving that extra little bit of positive reinforcement will help your employees to step up to the next level. So if we do these things, we're then going to have a good story when we come to doing our end of year. And we're just going to be doing a lot of copying and pasting as opposed to formulating a whole thing from scratch, which takes a lot of time and effort. Let's skip all that extra effort and already have it written down. So today we've talked over, how we should be formatting our end of year, things we should be including in it, things we should not be including in it, and how to make our lives easier on a go-forward basis as managers. This end of year is something that is very good conversation to have. And it can be a valuable conversation if you do it right. If you're just doing this as a checkbox activity, you are wasting the company's money and resources. So don't do that. Bad employee. Make sure you're doing it right. Make sure you're stepping up and doing the job you were hired to do. You were hired to lead, So lead. Give a good example. Set expectations for people and help them grow. Just like you want to have someone to help you grow your career. And if you need someone to help you grow your career, feel free to reach out. I'm always here to help. Sound off in the comments with any concerns you have around end of year, and I will talk to you soon. Have a great day.